Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Khushbu. Today we are going to discuss about transfer pricing at arm's length basis. So to start with, let's talk first about transfer pricing. The term transfer pricing refers to price of transactions which may take place between associated enterprises under the conditions which may differ if the transaction is happened between independent enterprises. It refers to value attached with transfer of goods, service or technologies between related parties and also between unrelated parties if it is controlled by a common entity. Hence, transfer pricing is value of goods or services between independently operating units of an organization. So, for example, if a company named ABC Limited purchases goods worth rupees 1000 and sells it to its associated enterprise in another country for rupees 1500, in turn, XYZ Limited sells the product in open market for rupees 3000 and directly earning the profit of rupees 1500. So, if ABC Limited would have directly sold it into open market, it would have earned rupees 2000 rupees profit. But by selling it to XYZ Limited, it has restricted it to rupees 500. So, this kind of transaction falls under transfer pricing. So, there are certain rules and regulations which are governing transfer pricing in India. So, let's talk about statutory rules and regulations which are governing transfer pricing in India. The Indian Transfer Pricing Code prescribes that any income arising from international transactions or specified domestic transactions between the associated enterprise is to be taken on arm's length basis. Also, it prescribes that any allowance, expenditure or any allocation of cost or expenses is to be taken on arm's length basis if it is transaction between associated enterprises and the transactions are international transactions or specified domestic transactions. The Act has also defined the terms such as arm's length price, domestic specified domestic transactions, international transactions, and associated enterprises. Well, not all type of transactions are covered under transfer pricing in India. So let's talk about the transactions which are covered under transfer pricing in India. So number one, international transactions. So the term international transaction refers to any transactions taken place between associated enterprises which involves sale, purchase or lease of intangible or intangible properties and provision of service or cost sharing agreement and any other transaction which involves bearing of profit, losses or assets of such enterprises. Number 2. Deemed international transaction. So if any transaction takes place between an enterprise and a person other than associated enterprise shall be deemed as international transaction if there is prior existence of an agreement between the other party and the associated enterprises regarding the particular transaction. So the conditions for an international transaction are: number 1, the transaction must be taken place between associated enterprise, and number 2, one of the party of this associated enterprises must be a non-resident. An international transaction includes purchase, sale, use, lease or transfer of tangible or intangible asset and provision of services and capital financing, which includes borrowing, lending or guarantee, or any transaction which holds bearing on profit, asset or loss of the enterprise, or any transaction of business restructuring which involves allocation of cost between these two enterprises. Number 3. Specified domestic transaction. So earlier, transfer pricing regulations were not applicable for the domestic transactions. However, Finance Act 2012 has extended its limits for the domestic transactions if the specified transactions are more than 5 crores. Number 4. Associated enterprises. The relationship between associated enterprise is defined under section 92A of the Act to cover direct or indirect participation in management, control or capital of an enterprise by another enterprise. It also clarifies that if the same person holds directly or indirectly power in management, capital or control in both the enterprises. Now let's talk about the parameters to identify two enterprises as associated enterprises. Now let's talk about transfer pricing at arm's length basis. Transfer pricing at arm's length basis means a price which applied or proposed to be applied in a transaction between the parties which are not associated enterprises under uncontrolled conditions. There are certain methods under which transfer pricing at arm's length basis can be calculated, such as comparable uncontrolled price method, resale price method, cost plus method, profit split method, and any other method that is prescribed by the board. So that's all from my end today about transfer pricing in India. So if you have any further queries, we have provided link to our blog in the description box below. This is Khushbu signing off for the day. Till then, goodbye. Take care.